guess this is a little bit more about BookTube, and a lot of their stuff is a little bit misleading. Again, there's this video I was trying to watch where she's like, oh, like top like 10 different heroic protagonist type of setups, and I thought she was going to actually list actual protagonists, but nope, it's a bunch of tropes she likes in a heroic dynamic, which is like to say, oh, I want to have the alpha male, but with a little bit of bad boy in him. Oh, and the men gots to cry, and the whole rich friend versus poor friend dynamic. Apparently, that was a. Then I kind of dipped out of that thing because I'm like, nope, this isn't really what I'm thinking about. But it also showcases what a lot of YA and all that other stuff kind of does with most of their setups is they want the sensitive man, but they also want him to be an alpha somehow. It's like, so which is it? See, I approach, when I'm doing Uplift Protocol, I approach it in more of a traditional sense where men and women each have their roles. They have their strengths and weaknesses, but if you put them together, they balance out each other. Because far too often, with the whole air quote strong female protagonist, she has to be basically both in one person. And that doesn't seem to fit. I've looked at stuff like that. I'm like, man, either they come off too mechanical like Ray, or they come off too overbearing like Cora. So, when it comes to Uplift Protocol, I look at my men and women in a more traditional sense. Um, if you're going to have, like, even though Star is in a leadership role, she often defers to her father or some other people depending on what their specialty is. Like, she still does the right thing, but she's not a combat heavy person. Like, her first instinct is to shield people. Like, she'll punch things, she'll kick things, to get the monsters off of people. But her first inclination is to shield. Um, and that's a big part of her character, like the core foundation of her character, along with the morals and how she was raised. And then I guess I'm also coming off my own experiences and putting all that into there, and then what I see my dad and my brother do as like more combat oriented guys from their military service. Because again, even though I was an MP, I was not, frontline combat. I helped drunk sailors get home. And I also took a look at the K9 units and be like, oh my god, look at those lovely land sharks. There we go. But yeah, it's far too often people are so concerned about like, oh, we gotta break down whatever norm this is. Like, oh, we gotta make sure men can be sensitive and like showcase their emotions. Well, yeah, they can do that, but more often than not, in a traditional sense, men do that in private. People expect women to grieve out in the open because we're women. With guys, again, I take it on a more of a stoic angle. They'll grieve, but they do it in private. Like I didn't have Golden Bullets here break down on screen. No, he did. He went to his man cave, and I don't have to show everything on screen. You'll see his reaction to when he gets his wife back. That'll be pretty plain as day. Um, Even though Gino has a very important role at Area 51, the one that protects her, besides her husband, is her brother. Her brother is the lead of her security detail. Are there women in the Typherian military? Yeah, of course. Again, I have I have the whole the admiral of the Utasa sector, but everybody has their roles to play. Uh, oh boy, yeah, like booktube needs more help. It really does need diversity of thought. And I hope that in some way these things I do brings that to the forefront because I'm just tired of the same stuff being trotted out when the bigger channels do something everybody goes in that direction, like with the tier stuff, or these are my top 10 blah blah blah, or these are my top 20 things that annoy me blah blah blah. It's like nah, I'm just more off the cuff. I rather just talk about topics that interest me, and then do quick offerings of books and other stuff I find on my radar. I'm not really going the regular booktube route. Because the regular booktube route is basically annoys the ever living shit out of me. So, there you go. That's my 2 cents on that. But yeah, with even looking at older science fiction and even up to about 2000, maybe about 2005, it wasn't uncommon to see a more stoic male figure doing traditionally male things. And that's fine. You put men and women together, and all sorts of different things will happen. And this is especially true of old time stories and everything else. A lot of modern commentators think that women were useless in a lot of these stories. No, they weren't. They helped drive things from a different kind of power source or a different perspective. Not that they were useless. Even as an individual to be rescued, that's still not useless. That provides motivation. And it's not like they made them all like, oh, I'm gonna sit here like a lump. Again, even in the old Superman cartoons, Lois picked up a Tommy gun and fired back at the bad guys. That wasn't nearly as uncommon as people think with the pulps either. Where do you think the whole femme fatale thing came from, huh? Men and women have different obvious strengths and weaknesses. Think about it. In the old grand scheme of the thing, like if a woman was trained to be kind of like an assassin, she'd be come at it from like a more socialized aspect, like the the knife in the velvet glove type of deal. She wouldn't be up front in your face brutal force. You know, a lot of yeah, I got more stuff to unpack here in a moment. Give me just 1 second. I gotta go get some more coffee. Okay, and I'll keep using Uplift Protocol as an example. The reason why Star can hit well above her biological weight class is because of the kind of superpowers she has. I had the Emrys plot point basically insert some old style multi-universal nanites in a lot of people, but it's going to develop in different ways in them. For, I guess this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but for Star, it's going to help augment her White Defender powers later on. And there's going to be a very good reason why most of her Typherian stuff doesn't work. Besides the obvious point of most of it went to bolster her brother's capabilities in that regard. Because that's going to be important for his arc later. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike. It's going to be fun. And even with, say, the Hillary Brooks' angle, I am going to make her eventually into a kind of, not Harley Quinn type character, because that would be like, meh, that's not really my style. But she's going to be so blinded by revenge that that's all she's going to see. And that's why her story is going to end, well, pretty badly. It's just going to showcase, it's like she's going to be pretty much like no redemption arc. That's just the way it is going to be. She's going to be the kind of person where you're going to see very bad decisions end up getting her even more pigeonholed and basically put upon by the universe, and she'll be too blinded to see that it's her own damn fault. And, you know, sometimes when I write her sections, I make sure I'm in a particular mood from work. So that way it's like, okay, I'm going to let this out and here's some proper motivation here for that. But, yeah, to come back to it, the roles of male and female are definitely much more traditional in my book. In terms of what they actually will do. It's not to say that the women are going to be weak or anything. It's like, no. Or that the men are going to be robots. No. It's more of the fact that there's a reason why the whole yin and yang dynamic can also apply to women. And men and everything else. We're each strong and weak in certain areas. Sure, science fiction can give women a leg up in the physicality range, but stories that resonate, or however you say it, or that really reflect with people, are kind of like that Waking trilogy I'm currently listening to. In that thing, the men and women were equalized because of technology, like guns, everything else, implants. But in this world that they're in, a lot of the technology advantages are gone. And while his wife does have some implants and enhancements, he's worried about her from a sheer physicality point because a lot of the natives on that planet now, that's how it works. It's a more medieval setup. Are there certain parts on the planet that have more advanced stuff? Yes. But it's also a case of one of those things where it's like the colony mission gone very, 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 very wrong. So in that story, the abilities of men and women are highlighted and how they fit together. And it's not always in a marriage sense or always in like a romantic sense. Sometimes it's just in how they balance each other. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a dirty word. No matter how often more modern storytellers will be like, no, it has to be this way. It's like, no, it doesn't. You don't have to, if you're writing something, you don't have to listen to anybody's input if you don't want to. You just get out what you need to get out. Now, will some things end up striking a chord with the mainstream more? Yeah. So if you're writing more towards making a six-figure income or, livable income, then yeah, you have to probably balance what you want as a writer versus what will get most eyeballs on your project. I'm under no illusion that superhero sci-fi, space opera will get millions and millions of readers. It's just too much of a particular niche, I guess. Now, can it get more popular? Yes. Can it become profitable? Yes, it can. Because again, with movies, it showcased that people for a while were interested in more traditional heroic archetypes. Funny how that works. But yeah, so when it comes to making a guy character, I use actual men as an example. Um, and even looking at how my dad reacts to things and how my brother reacts to things, whether it's in the field or not, because again, I've only gotten a few stories out of them, because actual combat situations does affect you. It sometimes is something you don't want to reflect on. And also, a good example of using reference is even to read something that's geared specifically towards men, like Galaxy's Edge. If you want to get a sense of how some men handle combat, if you want to get a sense of how some men would react in certain situations, you have to read outside of what you might normally read just to get a basic understanding. So, yeah, a lot of the combat guys in Uplift Protocol are going to react to things the way my brother or my dad would react to stuff. The one time I saw my dad get legit emotional was when my brother was in a combat action over in one of the stands, and his convoy was hit by an IED, and he had to go to Spangolim to, get his injuries seen to. Now, did they all get out? Yes. But for a while there, the only report my parents got was, yeah, we had to take your son to Spangolim. And that's when I legit saw my father start to cry. I mean, because again, that was his son involved in that sort of action. And, he's done the same, like, there's been near misses even when I was a baby, because I was a preemie. But yeah, men have a tendency to grieve in private, or maybe grieve with their wives. They don't automatically just go out to their kids and become a blubbering mess. It's not that they don't care. I just look at it as like sometimes some guys care so deeply that they just don't really know how to express it. That's also a thing too. So yeah, this whole getting more in touch with your feminine side, that's why we have a whole lot of soy men. It's like, the way I was raised, when you're looking at something, if you want comfort, usually you go to your mother or your grandmother, and they'll be your soundboard for like a more emotional side of things. If you want advice and some sense of like uplift or some side of bolstering, you go to your dad or your grandfather. Yeah, again, that's just how I was raised. I was raised in a traditional nuclear family. Yep. Everybody has the kind of role, and by breaking down certain kinds of barriers, it's like you don't get a clear sense of stuff anymore. You have to start from the basics and build up from there. So that's what I hope to do with Uplift Protocol. I want to showcase masculine strength and feminine strength in their own arena to what is kind of important. That's the reason why Star is the shield and her brother, her twin brother, is the spear. Star protects, her brother goes on the attack. You'll see a lot more of that later and like how that dynamic develops. Have a good day, everybody. I'll probably put this in the Uplift Protocol folder, just since I'm mostly talking about that and a few other things.